Yo, peace was good. Welcome to Hands On My CD collection. This is part 82. Let me these bastard CDs I got here right in front of me are CDs I bought like a couple weeks ago. I went to take my car to the car dealership for maintenance service and stuff like that. And not too far from the dealership is a Goodwill. So I was like, you know what, let me check the Goodwill, because I always frequent that Goodwill. And of course they have CDs, but anytime they have CDs, like sometimes depending where you're at, like they don't really have the CDs like all nice and shit. They have in boxes, and then you have to dig through them. But I'm so glad that they put them in like one of those like shelves, like bookshelves, so you can like kind of go through them and things like that. And that was the case with these that I got. So let me start with these. Start with the first CD of the video. This first album that I'm gonna show you guys, I'm so glad to find, because it's such a rare album. It's not hip hop, but I'm glad to own it. You know what I mean? And it is Kashif's second album, "Send Me Your Love," released in 1984. I believe this is the original pressing of the album. Kashif, for those who don't know who Kashif is, Kashif, he's a producer's producer. And I feel like a lot of hip hop producers owe their careers to this man right here. He's like the first. He's considered a pioneer when it comes to black music, as far as like being like a one-man's producer. You know what I mean? Him doing everything. Him playing the synths. Him playing the production. Him introducing MIDI to black music. I refuse to say urban music. I hate that fucking term. Excuse me. He's like a producer's producer. Like I say, he's a super producer. He's worked with Evelyn Champagne King, Whitney Houston, among other people, man, like shitload of people. A prime example of one of his best works, one of his most notable songs that he had something to do with, Evelyn Champagne King's "Love Come Down." He did the beat for that, you know what I mean? He produced that and shit like that. And I believe he wrote that song for her. So, yeah, he's such a dope artist. Very underrated. I didn't know about him until last year when I don't know if you guys heard of the show Unsung, where they show like artists, like black artists from the 60s, 70s, and 80s that never really got their shine, but they actually got that we never knew too much of. Like we got to like the heralded artists, like the underrated artists that they kind of interview and scope and things like that. Well, he was one of them, and I was like, just listening to him, the stuff he's done for people, I was very intrigued and stuff like that. So made me want to go check out his music, and then I started liking a lot of his shit. So but like I said, let me get back to this album. I know I talked a lot, but there's 3 singles of the album. The singles are "Baby Don't Break Your Heart," "Your Baby's Heart." Love that song right there. It just remind me of like old New York back in the 80s and shit like that. You know what I mean? Even though like I was in the daughter back in the mid 80s, but you know what I'm trying to say. It just has that old New York, back when New York was New York. It just bring me back to that time. "Old Love" and "Are You the Woman?" Those are the singles of the album. Highly recommend it. If you guys can find this album, pick it up. It's a hard album to find. It's not an easy album to find. For some reason, the CD is more expensive than the vinyl. I saw the vinyl, didn't pick it up. Should have picked it up, but yeah, this usually goes for a lot of money. Even the reissue that came out, I believe in 2012, is out of print. It's hard to find too. But yeah, man, fucking love this album. I mean, it's great out. Like, I consider him like the Phil Collins of black music. That's the best way I can describe him. And I know some of you guys can say, well, Prince was, but the difference was Prince, yes, he did play with all the instruments, but he also had people help him too. Like, he had his band to do everything. It wasn't until like the early 80s is when he started doing everything himself, but Kashif was the first person to do that. Like, him and Stevie Wonder were the first people to do that shit. Also, whatchamacallit, what was I gonna say? He also worked with a BT Express, so back in the day, like back in the mid '60s. But then he had a falling out, creative differences and stuff like that. If you guys ever get a chance, check out Unsung episode of Kashif. I mean, very very dope. This is Kashif, Send Me Your Love, released in 1984. Now this album I'm glad to find, you know what I mean? And I kind of slept on this group, but I'm glad I found it, you know, like at Goodwill, out of all places, you know what I'm saying? That's why I tell you guys, go to thrift stores, go to, you know, pawn shops, you never know what you're going to find. And this album is 3 times dope with their original album, with their debut album, original Stylin, released in 1988. This is the original pressing. Glad to own this album right here. They're from Philly. It consists of 3 members. What are the names? I'm sorry, I gotta look it up. Chuck Nice, EST, and Woody Wood. Those are the 3 MCs, or 3 members of the group. And like I said, very very dope album, man. I mean, the singles off the album is original Stylin, Funky Dividends, From the Giddy Up. I think Greatest Man Alive, I believe, was a single too. I'm not sure about that, but I know Funky Dividends, original Stylin, From the Giddy Up was definitely one of the singles of the album. I mean, the production on this album kind of surprised me. It's fucking dope. It's very gritty, very street. Fucking love this album. I mean, I'm glad to own this joint right here. Unfortunately, this album was never reissued. You know what I mean? I never hear people talk about them about 3 times dope. You know what I mean? But I definitely need to get more of their albums. Definitely need to get the sequel album that came out in '98, which was recorded back in 1994. Stuff like that. But yeah, this is 3 times dope. Original Stylin, released in 1988. Then you got TLC with their 3rd album, Fanmail, released in 1999. This was the last album that they came out with together. And then, Left Eye put out the Supernova album that came out the same year and stuff like that. It was like the first solo album. This album has a lot of controversy to it. Not controversy, but kind of like little gems and stuff like that. But whereas, the whole start of the name Fanmail came about where, fans would like send like mail to them, like, love notes and, appreciation to the groups and shit like that, to the band and stuff like that, the R&B group, I should say. And that kind of inspired them to make the name of the album on Fanmail. This sounds a little bit different from the first 2 albums. Album has like a more like electronic feel to it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the whole theme of it is like the whole World Wide Web when the internet became popular around that time and things like that. So as you can see, like the theme and things like that. The singles off the album are No Scrubs. I mean, that song was big in New York, yo. I mean, it was big everywhere. I believe Unpretty and Silly Hole were the singles off the album. I think, or Lovesick. I don't remember. Not their best album in my opinion. I prefer their first 2 albums. At the time of this album, it was supposed to come out back in 1998, but then it kept getting pushed back. There was a lot of friction going between the group. I think at the time Chili was going out with Dallas Austin, and that kind of caused friction with the group and things like that. And it was crazy, man. It's just, I don't know. It just didn't really feel. The chemistry wasn't there for me. That's just my opinion. Even though this is like the second best selling album, but I just wasn't too fond of this album, to be honest with you. Yeah, I didn't really care for this album, so it was okay. I feel like it could have been better. I'm just so spoiled of Crazy Sexy Cool, which is my favorite TLC album, and then on the TLC tip, TLC in their prime. But I just want to say rest in peace to TLC. I mean, not TLC, to T-Boz and stuff like that. And around this time, there was rumors of them. They were gonna make a solo album. All 3 of them were gonna make a solo album. So it was gonna be a T-Boz album, a Left Eye album, and a Chili album. It was supposed to drop around 2000, like 99, 2000, but that never came to fruition. That would have been fucking dope, especially around that time. That would have been dope, but unfortunately that never came to fruition. So, but yeah, TLC Fan Mail, released in 1999. Then we got Def Jeff with Just a Poet with Soul, released in 1989. I have his second album, Soul Food, which I kind of prefer better over this album in my opinion. This album was cool. Like if you guys know Def Jeff, he's an MC producer from Harlem, New York. Moved to the West Coast back in the day and shit like that. And he's kind of like in the lens of like Brand Nubian, like Lakim Shabazz, like that kind of like the whole 5% Nation of Black awareness, Black conscious kind of rapping and stuff like that. The singles off the album are On the Real Tip, Dropping Rhymes on Drums, Black to the Future, Poet with Soul. Poet with Soul. Those are the singles off the album. This album was okay. It wasn't really his best album. Like I said, I kind of prefer Soul Food over this album. I feel like the production on Soul Food was a lot better. Right now, from what I understand, he's a producer and he's done a lot of stuff for like other artists. He's worked with Tupac. He's worked with 50. He's worked with a whole bunch of artists. So he's pretty successful. And I think he was the one that did the theme song of Soul Food, the soundtrack, the theme song for Soul Food. I think it was the series or the movie. I'm not sure. I think it was a series that he did that came on Showtime back in the early 2000s, which that was a dope show by the way. But yeah, Def Jeff, Just a Poet with Soul, released in 1989. This is out of print as well. This album I was kind of shocked to find, but I'm glad to find it. You know what I mean? And it is Dr. Ice with Mic Stalker, released in 1989. Dr. Ice, he's known for his affiliate. He was part of the group UTFO at one point. You know what I mean? Well, he is the group until they broke up and shit like that. This is a solo album. I believe he was the first artist out of the group to have a solo album. The singles off the album are Love Jones, Soul Me, and Word to the Wise. Those are the singles off the album. It's pretty good. I actually like this album. It's not too bad. It's like the typical late 80s hip hop. It has like like the it has like the excuse me. It has the street shit, but not street like as you think it is. Like street for its time. Got the dope shit. You got the party joints and things like that. Glad to find this album. This album is kind of hard to find too. It's long out of print, but glad to find this shit right here. So yeah, Dr. Ice, The Mic Stalker, released in 1989. Then we got Dead Can't Dance, Into the Labyrinth. This is their 6th album. This was released in 1993. I showed you guys Dead Can't Dance before. I showed you their first album that came out in 1984, which is like my favorite album from them. It's one of them anyways. This sounds a little bit different from their earlier stuff, because their earlier stuff is like kind of like more. Well, their first album was more like dark wave, more like of The Cure, Ball Horse and those kind of bands. But later on, their albums were like more what's the term? Kind of like more like chamber music. You know what I mean? Like music that you would hear like in like those medieval movies in like from the 80s and some shit like that. Sound like score music and shit like that. With this album, this has like a more worldly feel, if that makes sense. Kind of like music that you would hear in the movie like The Medicine Man, like in like the jungle, like the Amazon or that African jungle. Like it kind of has like that vibe to like that jungle vibe to it, and that's what I got with this joint right here. This was okay. It wasn't really their best album, but I feel like it could have been a little bit better. But that's just my opinion. But Dead Can't Dance, Into the Labyrinth, released in 1993. Alright. Then we got Father MC with his first album, Father's Day, released in 1990. Father MC, for those who don't know who he is, Father MC, he's from Harlem. I believe he's from Harlem. I think he's from I believe he's from Harlem or Mount Vernon. I don't remember, but he was he was affiliated with Puffy or Diddy, as you guys want to call him. Um, got his start back in the early '90s. This came out in 1990. This song was kind of important to hip hop and R&B in general. Well, R&B realistically, because this album kind of launched the careers of Mary J. Blige and Jodeci. So, and this was their first appearance on Wax. So the song "I'll Do for You" was Mary J. Blige's first appearance on Wax. That was actually a single. Treat Them Like They Want to Be Treated with Jodeci. That was their first appearance on Wax. And I believe Lisa Baby was a single too, and I've Been Watching You. That was a single as well. Is he typical New Jack hip hop kind of ish in a sense? You know what I mean? Not that good. It's okay. Could have been better in my opinion. Father's Day by Father MC released 1990. Then we got K-Reno with Stories from a Black Book. This is his debut album, released in 1993. I told you guys about this album. You know, I did a rant about it. You know what I'm saying? Glad to own this joint right here. But my only gripe with this shit is that it's a CDR. That shit is corny. I like, what the fuck, man? You know what I'm saying? You can actually see through it. You know what I mean? I don't want to see through that shit. But when I put it on my iTunes, it actually shows, like, you know, the songs, the name of the songs and the artists and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, I'm glad to own this joint right here. I already have Danger Zone, which I showed you guys a while back. Fucking love this album right here. If you guys like that early rap-a-lot kind of sound like that I love, then you'll definitely enjoy this album. You know, if you guys like people like, you know, The Terrorist or Point Blank or Gangsta Nip, like that sound, then you'll definitely enjoy this album. And speaking of that, you know, he was like the founder of the whole South Park Coalition. You know, he did, you know, which introduced artists like Gangsta Nip, Point Blank, The Terrorist, PSK13, you know, people like that. And yeah, man, fucking love this album. Very dark, very dirty. You know what I'm saying? Very dope. Glad to own it. I'm gonna try to get the original, but for now I'm gonna keep this. You know what I mean? So, especially the trouble that I got the album for. You know what I mean? But yeah, I already showed you guys. I already told you guys about that. So, but yeah, this is K-Reno with Stories from the Black Book, released in 1993. This is the 2005 reissue, by the way. Last but not least, K-Reno with the Maven. I don't know what number album this is, because he came out with mad albums, but this came out in 2013, and I actually liked it. It's actually pretty dope. Yes, it has like the, you know, it has like the new sound of the South, but you know, you guys know, if you guys know about K-Reno, you know K-Reno, he's all about the, you know, but the positivity and stuff like that, things like that. So yeah, I like the production on the album. The production is pretty good. Obviously not as good as his earlier stuff, but you know, I'm glad to, you know, to own it. And you know, K-Reno was nice enough to send me this on you know, for free. You know, since, you know, I've been trying to get that Story from the Black Book album for a minute. But that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys enjoyed that video, stay tuned for more. Peace.